Hello and welcome back to the 1904 Club, the Hull City podcast, of course, from the Hull Daily Mail. And there's three of us dressed in normal attire today. And David Prutton has come dressed as a referee. There he is. Giving us
You're right.
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm good. This is what I'd laughingly call gym gear, which
oh God,
it warns people off me more than the other way around, which is good. No, how are we? Yes, I thought again I'd once again time it until we had a result such as this. I could have come on and chatted about trouncing Southampton, but unfortunately the diary didn't fit. So let's wait till we lose at Watford.
Oh, it's the life and times of Hull City. Kathryn, that was a gut wrencher. Are you all right? Frustrated, I should think, after that second half performance.
Well, yeah, I pretty much summed it up, to be fair. But I mean, I have already blamed you this morning for the defeat after the Elton John T-shirt, which I did say last week I would do. So I'm just re-emphasising that point for anyone that did listen last week, that it is all on you for wearing the Elton John T-shirt.
I will take the rap, and it means that if other people get off scot-free, I'm prepared. I've got broad enough shoulders. I'm used to getting criticised from one or two, so I'll take it. I mean, it was a good T-shirt. It's a great song, and I love going to Watford to a point because it is a bit like an Elton John shrine. It is good, but what you don't want to hear is Elton John songs playing at the end, because that means they've won the game, and we hear that far at Vicarage Road. I can cope with your song before kickoff. I don't necessarily think it's the sort of song that inspires the crowd. It certainly didn't inspire Watford in that first half. But yeah, I'll take the rap. Burnsy, you gonna have a shot? Come on.
Yeah. No. I'm just glad Peter Ridsdale hasn't got a long and distinguished recording career, and you're wearing a Peter Ridsdale T-shirt.
I've got a goldfish on my shirt underneath. If that's of any use for those that get that one.
Moving on. Kathryn used a word to describe the performance at Watford. Or a feeling about Watford in the green room in our group chat before the game, while we script all of this to the last ad-lib and everything like that. And I agree with Kathryn in terms of what I'm feeling about the Watford performance. The word was, Kathryn?
Annoyed. I think that's what I used. Was it frustrated?
Yeah.
Was it annoyed? Yeah.
Was it a swear word?
Annoyed. Yeah.
KB doesn't swear. She doesn't swear.
That's the PC version. Yeah. I've got to keep my reputation intact.
I'm just annoyed.
It was.
I'm like Kathryn. I'm annoyed. They played so well in the first half and looked comfortable and were in control of that game at Watford. And you're hoping against hope that they finally stick back-to-back wins together. And then they give it up. They chucked it away in the second half. So frustrated. We'll get into the ins and outs of it, but yeah, I'm still annoyed about it. But hopefully they'll get a chance to put it right. How many games now is it without a back-to-back win?
45. I think
that's a lot.
Only Southampton. I think only Southampton in the 92 have had more games without back-to-back wins, and obviously they didn't win, so theirs has gone up to, I think, 49. And the frustrating thing, I think, for Saturday was they were so on top in that first half. Once McBurnie scored after 25 minutes, and you've got the home fans immediately chanting for their manager to be sacked in the morning. Well, they were saying he was going to be sacked in the morning. Every time that City won the ball in the final third, the Watford fans were booing. They booed them off at half time. But we said, didn't we, at half time, that the Achilles heel of City is killing teams off, at Southampton aside. And that Watford probably wouldn't be as bad in the second half. And if they didn't get that second goal, we know they struggle defensively, and they're always susceptible. In any game in this league, you are susceptible to conceding a goal, no matter what situation the opposition are in, how bad they might be, or whatever problems they've got. You are always at risk if you don't kill it off. And they were rubbish in the second half. Prutts. They were so far off it that it was ridiculous. Their passing had gone astray. They had no intensity. They couldn't get up the pitch. And Watford have got good players. Let's be honest. They've got a good side. Yes, they're having a tough time of it. But if you give good players enough encouragement at some point, and you don't win your headers, like I remember the ball for the first goal. It comes over the top, and in commentary, I said, "Oh, Egan's let this bounce here. He's got a problem."
They just backed off and backed off and backed off and backed off. The next minute, you turn around. As a midfielder, you're screaming at your defenders to stay high. But the next minute, he's backed off that much that he's on the edge, almost to the 6-yard box. So there's a pullback.
Yeah.
It's a neat little finish with the eyes. But then you get the warning sign of one cleared off the line from a yard and a half out. And then the winning goal is just an absolute joke. If you watch it in its entirety, there's not one person marking him at all. Just stood there, moves. And it's not, it's a good header. Doesn't take much. It's like a cross and finishing exercise. There's no pressure on the man that heads it in. The mitigation comes slightly in the sense of when you've got Oli playing like he was with that kind of pomp. He hits the post, that goes in, 2-0, a slightly different thing. I think there was a chance just after that, I can't remember who it was, who flashed wide, similar post. And trying to not negate what you're saying about the second half, because you're absolutely right, but drop a little bit of positivity in. That it could have been done and dusted by half time.
It should have been. However,
that's hypothetical. It wasn't. So then you've got to stay in the game. You can't have two completely contrasting halves where it looks like the same faces, same shirts, looks like different players, doesn't it? Doing different things, making the wrong decisions, looking a little bit fragile and a bit timid. And then if you are having a second half like that, which is a bit of a shocker, you absolutely categorically make sure that set pieces that you're not easy to score against. And they were. And as you're all saying there, the frustration comes from a wonderful victory against a much fancied side, even though they would have dominated possession in Southampton. Undone against a team which I think, with the greatest respect to any Watford supporting colleagues and friends of mine, of which there are more than a few, which I think is odd, that are a team that's woefully inconsistent.
Yeah.
Watford could finish anywhere between 5th from bottom and somewhere in the playoff places. Like you say, as they've got good players, they just are inconsistent of performance and output and result. But that's when I was watching City in the first half, that was as good and as swaggering as I've seen him in a long time. And forgive me if anyone wants to put me right who's seen every single minute of City over the last year or so. You obviously take out the back end of last year and the mess that was last season. I'll go back to what we said about the team that's been put together. There's a good team there. City have got a good team, good squad, a squad that can rub shoulders with the top half of the Championship. Sorry, that sounds a little bit defeatist in ambition, but when you've got Oli playing like that, I've got a lot of time for him. I think, as you said before we came on here, that the manager singled him out for the man that's pulling up trees, doing his bit, and defensively, it'll be as much as anyone stood there scratching their heads when you've got real experience. If that's your man, pick him up. Sorry, it's so straightforward. It's where everyone's laughing at Arsenal for relying on set pieces. They're going for the Premier League. If it's good enough for Arsenal going for the Premier League, it's good enough for Hull City kind of flapping sometimes in the Championship.
Burnsy, if we just cover off the first half, they were very good. Watford had a couple of moments, largely because City were unable to, do the simple things of getting the ball away. But the Watford chances came from City. There was two balls in the first 5 minutes. Drame was brought in to stop that happening and didn't stop that happening. But they were good first half. His chance, Cody Drame, does it fall to the wrong person? The ball in from Giles was wonderful, wasn't it, from the left-hand side? Takes out Watford's entire defence, and Drame running in onto it 6 yards out. It's a good save from Nathan Baxter, credit to him. But Drame has to score, and that's 2-0, as Prutts said. If they go 2-0 up in the first half, there's anarchy in the stands at half-time. City just, probably go on and win that 3-4-0, or at least see it out. They've been punished again, haven't they? And that's the frustrating thing. Early in the season is they are so susceptible defensively. They've conceded 14 goals. The stats say 14 in their 7 games. They kept a clean sheet at Coventry first game. So effectively in the 6 games since, chuck in the fact they conceded 3 at Wrexham, who are a Championship club now. So that's effectively another Championship game. So they've conceded 17 goals in 7 games. That is, by anybody's standards, that is ridiculous. And they're in danger of undoing and potentially damaging the opportunity of success, as Prutts said. going forward, they're fantastic. They look a real threat. But if you're conceding they're averaging 2 goals a game in the league. That you aren't winning many games if you're conceding 2 every game.
So the question becomes, and I'll put it to the three of you: how do you sort it? What does he do? Does he change the shape? Does he change the personnel?
Well, Kathryn knows what it is, whether by hook or by crook or whether he's fit or not. What happens, Kathryn? Who comes in? Who do we need?
Well, if I'm going to pronounce his name correctly, which we're not 100% sure if I am, Ajay has to come back in for me. I actually said to both of you last week whether he was fit, whether he comes back in, but that was off the back of a 3-1 win. And I still think in the games against Swansea and the games against Southampton, and I still had concerns about the defence when we were getting better results. And I know we can only base him off that one game at Coventry, and we can't just think, oh well, he was brilliant at Coventry and we kept a clean sheet, so if we put him back in, that'll fix everything. But I do think I'm not convinced about the centre back partnership. And like last week, I did say, the more games they have together, you would think it would get stronger. I don't know if it's that they're too similar. There's not enough pace between the two of them. For some reason, and it's not just the centre backs, because the full backs are sometimes culpable as well. But I just I don't think Charlie Hughes has quite been at the level that we know he can get to this season so far. I think Egan was a bit culpable for the first goal. I thought the way he sort of defended it was a bit strange. Granted, a lot then had to happen afterwards for them to score, but I thought it was a little bit strange in the way he sort of defended it. And I just feel like maybe either one of them, I think Hughes would potentially benefit from playing alongside Ajayi and I'm basing it off one game, so it's kind of, it's difficult to say that's going to solve everything. But he was brilliant in that game at Coventry, and it looked like the two of them had a really good partnership that had a lot of potential. And then we've not been able to see it again since, and that's kind of why I would like to see him come back in when he is fit. The problem is obviously he does seem to be made of glass a little bit. So, you do throw him back in. You don't want him to then get another injury straight away. So does he have to be eased back in a little bit? I don't know. But for me, I think that's the change I'd be looking to make when he is able to come back in. Although I did say earlier, if he's got one leg, he should come back in. But that was maybe on reflection.
Well, on his fitness, so obviously we are recording this ahead of the pre-match press conference for the game against Preston tomorrow. But I spoke to Sergei at Vicarage Road outside the toilets, bizarrely. But there we go. Ajayi is
glamorous.
Say again.
Glamorous.
Well, the job is glamorous. You know as well as anybody. So Ajayi is expected to be fit, as well as Matt Crooks. So we'll get Sergei did say that on Saturday. We'll get confirmation this afternoon. Obviously, that by the time this goes out, we will have known. But hopefully, he's fit. For me, he's got to come straight back in. They've conceded just in the last 3 away games. So Bristol City, Swansea, and Watford, 60 shots on their goal. I mean, Prutts, that's by any stretch of the imagination, 60 shots in 3 games away from home. Yes, I know it's the Championship, but only 9 of those, just for context, only 9 of those were at Swansea. 29 at Bristol City before the break, another 21 at Watford on Saturday. It's no surprise they're conceding a lot of goals when they are allowing teams that many shots on their goal. Not all on target, obviously. And that stat, you can make it fit, like with any stats, you can make it fit your narrative. But in cold, hard facts, that is, that's, again, they're averaging 20 shots on their goal in 3 games away from home. That is dangerous, isn't it? You are going to concede goals.
Well, yeah, and it's a collective thing. It's not a back 4 thing. It's not a back 6 thing. It's from the front back. Obviously, it maybe take Oli away from that because he in reality, a striker shouldn't be 20 yards outside his own goal for the majority of the game. So it is a collective thing. The fact that, I mean, a back 4 of Coyle, Egan, Hughes and Giles, I think is perfectly workable in the Championship. Kathryn mentions Hughes and obviously the kind of younger element of what that back 4 is. So there's a lot of experience there. Lundstrom knows his way around this division. and working your way further up the pitch, there's names that instantly jump out that should know how to defend. I mean, saying that, you take into account, we went through the goal at home. Was it the Swansea goal where we're looking where that come from? That was Joseph not tracking his runner, so there is an element of switching off. So as a collective, they are conceding way too many shots. I totally get what you're saying, but as a collective, it's their responsibility. Whether the midfield are getting in the right positions to help the back four, whether the players in front of the midfield are getting in a position to help those two kind of sitting midfielders, is one for the manager to try and debate. It's the concession of shots is. I mean, if you're getting absolutely peppered and goals are going in left, right, and centre, that's slightly more worrying. However, if you're conceding shots but they're not scoring the amount of goals that would suggest reflects those shots, then that's a slight positive to take from it. Again, I go back to the winning goal on Saturday, set piece. It doesn't matter how many shots you concede or how many shots you stop. If you're going to let someone have the freedom of the 6-yard box, it doesn't matter really. So there is a lot to be concerned about. I mean, the other side about it is you've got a team that finished, without wanting to rake over old coals, given how last season finished, this defence hasn't been rock solid for months. Months and months and months and months. You know, without going too far back, it was a poor season last year, and teams that normally faff around at the bottom end of the division don't have good defences. So from a personnel point of view, yes, there's been tweaks. There's not been fundamental changes, unless I've missed something here. You know what I mean? A lot of the names are very similar to what we've seen in that team for the last 6 months.
Burnsy, coming back to the question you asked, how do we solve this? Potentially bringing back Shemi Ajay is going to help. Of course it is, as long as he's fit. And you hope, and for him as well, most importantly, because he's had a nightmare year or so, that he's over that hamstring problem and that he comes back into the team and what have you. I mean, the manager said it to me on Saturday that his first choice partnership is Hughes and Shemi Ajay. So you would read into that, if he's fit, he'll come back straight back into the team. Further up the pitch, though, is that a concern? That yes, we can hammer the defence and we can say Egan shouldn't have let the ball bounce. He should have headed. He should have won that header and got it out for at least a throw, and they reset. That Hughes should have got closer to Louser. Pandor potentially slow to react. Does he save that a year ago? Is he not in great form? But further up the pitch, are they allowing the opposition to get too close to their box and put too much pressure?
Well, I mean, sorry to put in, Baz, but the goal where the first goal comes from, yes, I talk about pressure up the pitch. It's just been, I said launched, it's been hit forward with a bit of purpose, but it must have travelled 70 yards. And if John, who I've covered his games, got a whole host of respect for, given his experience. I mean, bless him, we spoke to Jack Robinson on Saturday and gave him the big build-up, and lo and behold, he gets 2 yellow cards, and thinking, oh, Jack, we can't really mitigate for that, mate. But John, I would think, or I would assume, would know that if he had that position again, he wouldn't do that. Because the goalkeeper must be screaming, go, what are you doing? And backwards and backwards and backwards and backwards. The next minute, you're in your 18-yard box, and then you can't touch him. You know what I mean? You could 10 yards at the pitch, you might be able to give him a whack, which might give away a free kick, but stops you getting near the 6-yard box. But where he finds himself, decision-making wise, is something that you would expect from a younger player, not knowing too much about the bearings and the geography of where they find themselves on the pitch. The ball shouldn't have been allowed to go that far. It should have been dealt with, as you say. This is all what ifs and buts now. But the kind of the defensive side of what that is, that's not, and going back to Burnsy's point about what do you do about it, that's very, very straightforward. Without sounding like a dinosaur, it's very Sunday League, isn't it? Launch it forward to a big striker, he backs in all the way into the box and allows that type of play to then unfold. That's not a structural thing. That's not a formational thing. That's not tactics. That's just poor decision-making, like the second goal. Poor decision-making, lack of responsibility. It's nothing to do with the manager.
Kathryn, is that the point here that I saw, as you would expect, the win over Southampton, the manager gets lauded for his tactics, the approach, his changes that made an impact. They didn't make any impact on Saturday. Then he gets criticised because they lose at Watford, or he didn't make the changes at the right time. The changes he did make didn't work, blah, blah. Is it more simple than tactics and things like that in the minute? That players are just making mistakes, that You look at the 2 goals at Swansea, there was nothing tactical about that. As Prutts said, it was a ball into Vipotnik. Hughes allowed him to turn and spin and fire it in the net. The second goal wasn't tactical. It was Hughes and Carl Joseph just watched as the ball went to the back post to Ronald to score. Nothing tactical. It's not like they. Yes, at times you feel they are open, but again, as Prutts says, that first goal on Saturday, ball at the top, Egan lets it bounce, doesn't win the header, comes back out to Lauser, who's not marked on the edge of the box. Hughes stands there and watches him stick it in the bottom corner. Nothing tactical about that. Just is it more simple than are we trying to overcomplicate it and think, well, actually, it is tactical when it's simply that players just aren't doing their jobs that they should be doing.
Yeah, I think it is a bit of that. I think it can change on the opposition you're playing. So I think Southampton, the way they played, it's kind of suited our midfield in the sense of Lundstrom and I'm going to attempt it. Hadzimatovic? Is that how you say it?
Or just go Amir, like Burnsy.
I'll just go Amir, which is, his first name. But anyway, the two of them looked like against Southampton where they're just sort of passing it, side to side. That kind of suited them. And I thought that midfield partnership, right, that looks like it could really work. And maybe it's different because we're playing away from home at Watford. But there were times where I thought, is there enough legs in that midfield now I'm looking at it? Or is that just because of other things that have gone wrong where it looks like they're chasing shadows in the second half and they're just not quite there? And do we need Matt Crooks to come back in? And would he make a difference if he's in that midfield? And Joe Gelhardt's in the sort of part of the midfield, but he's playing number 10. And is he getting back? And you in some games you don't question those things, but then you have another game where you're playing a completely different opposition where all the things that, you might have thought is a weakness previously is suddenly comes back to the fore. I think it is partly that, and I also think it's partly inconsistency. I think sometimes the players just aren't consistent enough. They can have a great game the game against Watford was a perfect example of it. In that the first half they were brilliant, and the second half they were terrible. And we've had games like Bristol away where they were terrible. Swansea, they were better, but then at home to Southampton, they were brilliant. And it's sort of, you're not 100% sure what you're going to get from them week to week. So when we played Southampton, I was sort of thinking, we could get something today, but equally we could lose. I felt exactly the same going into the Watford game. And I feel that the same going into the Preston and Sheffield United games, in that they're two really difficult games coming up. And you think, well, I've seen enough to say that we can cause them problems, but I've also seen enough to say that we could concede a few goals against both of them. You mentioned the goalkeeper, Panda. And I don't think it's a weird one because I don't think he's necessarily been at fault for goals and he's not had any clangers where you can point at him and say, he's responsible for that. But I do agree, he maybe doesn't quite look the same force of a goalkeeper that we saw last season. He's maybe not as commanding, he maybe isn't quite. And I wonder if part of that is actually because he's not got any competition behind him. Because realistically, I don't think Phillips has had that one game at Wrexham and played pretty badly and isn't going to be pushing him enough. Last season, he had Carl Rushworth behind him and lost his place for a bit. And granted, Rushworth ended up leaving, but he came back and he was brilliant after he got his place back. And this season, it sort of feels like, well, he knows he's going to be number one, unless he goes on a terrible run and he starts like dropping the ball in his own net, week after week. He's probably not going to lose his place to Phillips. So he's not got anyone kind of pushing him and testing him. And I think you do need that sometimes. And I think that's potentially an issue with him. But again, I don't think he's been bad. I just don't think he's maybe quite as, and granted he had a really good season last season, so you can sort of allow him a little bit of a drop off. But yeah, that first goal, you sort of think, well, it's not like he definitely should save it, but he almost didn't attempt to save it and he just sort of watched it go in. And he's not, like I say, he doesn't feel like that kind of force of the goalkeeper that we saw sort of last season.
Yeah. Burnsy, what impact do you think I think that's a great point, Kathryn. I would also say the second goal, I think he could probably do better. I think you've made a really good point about the competition. That's something that we'll talk about again.
Well,
Burnsy,
what about that one cleared off the line as well?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a decent cross shot palmed into the feet of a central striker.
Yeah.
There's your second goal. There's the winning goal. And then maybe the corner goes in as well. City come away 3-1 defeatist. Yeah,
I absolutely agree. Burnsy, Lundstrom booked after 12 minutes for what looked in real time a genuinely good tackle. And I thought the referee had some difficulties on Saturday, but I thought that was a fair challenge for Lundstrom. irrespective of whether it was or wasn't, it's irrelevant to the point I'm making, that booked after 12 minutes. What impact do you think that had on his performance, particularly in the second half, where is he? And Prutts, you can come in, obviously having played that position as well. When you're booked, especially away from home, you're booked so early in the game, and your role is so important in terms of winning the ball. And Lundstrom is very physical, very tenacious in his play. You know, does that have an impact psychologically at the back of your mind? It's not obviously at the front of your mind. You're not running around with that flashing like a big neon light in your face. But subconsciously, do you pull out of a challenge? Are you less aggressive because you know you've been booked and you can't afford to get another one?
Me or Burnsy?
Well, let Burnsy go first, and then you can waffle on after that.
All I was going to say is I think he's experienced enough he'll have had bookings in his career before. He should be experienced enough to play the game without being overly concerned about it. Prutts may have a different viewpoint on that. I just wanted to say on the midfield, they sort of, if you think back to Southampton, the start to the second half, they conceded a lot of possession to Southampton, but Southampton overplayed, so were never quite a threat. But they conceded a lot of possession again at the start of the second half against Watford and gave Watford a leg up back into the game for me, just by letting them have the ball. To me, it needed fresh legs in midfield. I know we've been critical of the defence, but it needed fresh legs in the midfield early. It's just the way that the game was going. And I'll give you a positive point on. I know what you're saying about the shots on target. Preston are 21st in the division for shots on target, so it might not be a problem tomorrow night. He says, hopefully, optimistically. Plus, Lundstrom should be able. Lundstrom's experienced enough to manage a game when he's on an early booking, isn't he?
Yeah, I'd say so. I've not actually seen the challenge, but I'll go with what you're saying, Baz. If it looked a little bit unfair, did you say, with regards to?
I thought it was a bit harsh to after 12 minutes to book him. It looked like on real time, it looked like he won the ball.
There's a broader debate there, isn't there? There's a lot of chat about officials and standards, etc. But we won't get into that because I'm dressed like one. But I think, I'm with Burnsy completely without sounding like should know better, and he's got the experience on this side. He has a bit like John dealing with the ball over the top. So yeah, there is an element of that. You just got to fine tune and concentrate, which is, I mean, Christ. We're saying things that people do in their everyday professions across the board, don't we? Could you just concentrate on the game on your job for the next 45 minutes? It'd be great. So that's a responsibility for him. And again, it's reflective, isn't it? Of I've pointed the finger at Watford saying they're inconsistent. I mean, that's what defines City at the moment, isn't it? John's goal against Southampton was an absolute thing of beauty. What a goal that was! You know what I mean? The build-up play, the crossfield pass, towering header from Oli, and a third man run. Just a real picture book goal, which shows what they're capable of. And in a flick of a switch, and 7 days later, it's slightly different. So, there's been good bits and bad bits from across the City squad. And if John's put himself in a position that nullifies what he's good at, which is getting about the pitch, getting up and down, covering the distance, then it's something, again, you've got to learn from. But again, echoing Burnsy's point, should know better, should be able to deal with it, given the amount of games and the amount of experience under his belt.
On the booking situation, Lundstrom's got 3 for the season. Regan's got 3 for the season. So they're 2 bookings away from a one-game ban. And the Gaffer also got booked on Saturday. So he's got 2 bookings now. He's 1 game away from a one-game touchline ban.
Was it for him, or because you can get booked with one of your members of your staff playing up, can't you, nowadays?
Yeah, it was definitely for him. I asked him about it on Saturday, and he sort of said, well, it was to do with a challenge in the game, and he was unhappy with the challenge, and he suggested to the referee that the referee should have perhaps dealt with the situation better. And he said then the referee did then change his mind, by which point he'd already booked him. But yeah, he got booked earlier in the season because I think it was the Oxford game, and there's somebody on the bench, unclear who, but City had scored the 3rd goal. McBurnie had scored what proved to be the winner, and the ball went out. And it
was that when someone threw to the ball up?
Yeah.
I saw that.
There was some. No, I'm not going to. I can't say that because that would be unfair. But yeah, so the gaffer got booked because.
Have you seen that?
Say again.
You would have seen that, wouldn't you? That whole kind of, yeah. It's amazing how it appears out of nowhere from like a hooded figure. It's just like, who's thrown that?
There was some suggestion it was Brandon Williams, but that is an alleged offence and it hasn't been corroborated by anybody else. So,
but then the manager takes the hit for that. That's how it goes. Isn't it?
Kathryn, I'll ask this question to each of you actually, because we've talked about this week and every week so far that there is, while we are criticising defensively the team, and rightly so because they've conceded 14 goals, the most in the league now. But there is a lot to like about them going forward. They're scoring a lot of goals. Obviously, McBurnie's on fire. He's got 5, including the goal at Wrexham. He's got 5. When you think that João Pedro is a top goal scorer with 6 last season, he's well on the way to beating that already. Kathryn, are they in danger though with this defensive situation of kind of having a negative impact on what they could achieve this season? And I'm not saying, I know we were well excited after the Southampton game, and I don't want to get too down or too high because we've only played 7 games and start making outlandish predictions. But they feel like a team that has the potential to be top 10. And if you're in the top 10, then you've got every chance of especially given how open this league is this year, of challenging for the top 6 in the final weeks of the season. They've got that the front top of the top of the pitch feels like it has the capability if they stay fit to go that far. But because of what they're doing defensively and how easy they are to score against, are they in danger of hampering their own progress basically because of that profligacy at the back?
Yeah, I think so. But I also think they're only a few injuries away from that being a problem as well. And I think that's kind of been what we said at the start of the season, where I think they have got options, but even Balumi getting that injury and Darla's got an injury, suddenly you've got Cody Drame playing right wing. And granted, it might have been like a more defensive move, but that's why he ends up in that position to nearly score the goal because he's playing further up the pitch. But he's a defender, so naturally he's less likely to score than potentially a Balumi or an Ndala if they're in that position. Or a Matt Crooks, for example, who's obviously still not fit. And it's the same with, Ajay not being there, and you think, well, would he offer you greater, defensive stability? If anything happened to McBurnie, God forbid, that would be a problem. I think we have got options in certain positions. We've got a great squad when they're all fit, and I think when they're all kind of on their game. In terms of I think the defense is the issue, but it's like we were saying earlier, it's not just that back four. It's like collectively as a defensive unit is the problem. So yes, I do think it could hold us back, but I also think we can sort it out. I think like the players that we have, I don't think it's a bad defensive unit, and I don't think we especially when more people come back from injury as well. I think it can be fixed. I just think we've not quite worked out how to fix it yet. So it will hold us back if we don't solve the problems, but I think it is workable.
Go on, Captain Burns.
Just going to read a couple of messages out coming into the 1904 club. Matty H talking about the defensive situation. Is the cohesion between the defence and midfield an issue when defending? Not convinced whatsoever by City's defensive approach. Could be tactical, could also be players not doing their jobs. Worried that when chasing the game, we still offered 0 against a poor Watford team. Andrew Evans says we have a good squad, but I'm puzzled at why we can't defend. It's letting us down, especially as we're far better than last season. Get it right and we'll do well this season. Let's be positive, especially with our new attacking ability and our new beast McBurnie up the Tigers, says Andrew Evans. We'll talk about McBurnie at some point because I want to know how close he might be to a Scotland call-up. It's got to be close, hasn't he?
Well, he was on the...
I'll leave that one hanging there for you.
Yeah, so...
Prutts has raised his eyebrows there, for those of you that are not watching on YouTube.
Which is a feat in itself, given how much Botox I've had. But
Yeah, I was going to say he's the only man in telly without Botox. Well done, Prutts.
He masks it very well. I think he was on a reserve list for the last internationals for Scotland, I think. So for the break just gone. So look, Burnsy, you know far more about your lot than we do, I guess. It doesn't feel like Scotland score a lot of goals. McBurnie is there can't be many Scotland strikers either in Scotland or elsewhere that have scored more goals at the start of this season than Oli McBurnie, surely.
Yeah. And I think I got, because I mentioned it during the game on Saturday on Tigers Plus, that I thought he can't be that far away from Scotland having a look at him. But just, being in the Championship count against you, and people were pointing out to me that Lyndon Dykes is in the Championship and he gets picked, and McBurnie's a better striker than Lyndon Dykes. That's a debate for another day. But I don't think he's featured since about 2021. He's got 16 Scotland caps, but I would have thought, given Scotland's striking situation, he can't be far away, at least from making the squad. And didn't he say when he first came in, it was one of his targets to get back in the Scotland squad? And it would be great to have a City player going to the World Cup next season. Or next year.
I mean, Lyndon Dykes is a decent Championship striker, but he's not. I wouldn't put him in the same category as an Oli McBurnie. I think if Oli McBurnie is fit in scoring goals, he surely has to be in the squad. I guess the one concern for City is he's playing more games, and you want him wrapped in cotton wool. When he's not playing, you want him wrapped in cotton wool for the next City game. And if he's going away, look great for him playing in World Cup qualifiers. Scotland have got two. Greece and Belarus coming up next month, or next week, I should say. That's a huge shot in the arm for City to have a Scotland international. But for City, I know all fans will be watching those two games from behind the sofa, hoping and praying that he doesn't get any kind of injury. Because as Kathryn rightly points out, if McBurnie's out of the team, that's a big concern. We've not seen enough of Destan yet, and he's still working his way back. You've got Gowhart and Carl Joseph, but McBurnie's the talisman. He is the talisman. If he scores, they've got a chance. They're not scoring enough goals from elsewhere, but if he's fit, great. But yeah, I mean, Prutts, half a chance, surely.
Yeah, definitely. When you were chatting about their options, and I presumed that Lyndon Dykes was going to come into the conversation, and I think Ollie's got a better all-round game at the moment. I think he's having an effect. I suppose that time frame between when he was last picked and now probably reflects the lack of real consistent output that he's had. I mean, saying that even though he's been at clubs that have been doing well, hasn't he? And a big move in amongst all that. So I've met him a couple of times, and I've spoken to coaches that have coached him. Tremendously likable character, very lively. You get his head on and his focus narrowed down, and you've got a really good player there. And I think he looks like he feels at home. Geographically, it's not too far from obviously where he's from and potentially where he lives. So there's a lot to like about what he's doing. And again, the caveat being, as yourself and Kathryn mentioned, that if he gets injured, you think, bloody hell. But if you could think about that with any player on the pitch, they're only one tackle away from being out for a couple of games. So I think enjoy what he's doing and try and emphasise what he's doing. And if that ends up with him getting called up to Scotland, it can only be a good thing for a player's mentality and confidence.
Kathryn, Preston tomorrow night then, on the first of two home games before the break. They're, sixth in the table. They've had a decent start. 3 wins, 3 draws and a defeat. I think they've only had one win in 5, though, or 4, the last 4 or 5. That was away at a place that I can't mention prior to that. But they are resolute. What is it? Just for context, Kathryn, City have scored 11 goals, Preston 7. City have conceded 14, Preston 5. So these games don't generally create a huge amount of goals historically. City won the corresponding fixture last season, importantly, at the back end of the campaign. But it's really important, isn't it, given what happened on Saturday, to go back-to-back at home would be psychologically important, especially you've got Blades coming on Saturday for the early kickoff, and obviously they've now got that first win under Chris Wilder.
They're tricky, aren't they, Preston? It's like Paul Heckingbottom teams are just always well organised, well drilled. You kind of know what to expect from them almost. And I do think it'll be a really tough game on Tuesday. I think they'll come to set up for a point, I imagine, and look to try and nick a goal. That's what I would expect them to do. And it's whether we can break through their defence, but also like not leave ourselves open if we are kind of going hell for leather attacking football. So I do think it'll be tricky, and how that game goes, you then sort of, if we get a good result against Preston, you feel a little bit more at ease when you're playing Sheffield United. If we was to lose to Preston, suddenly that game against at home to the Blades feels really kind of like, oh, we could do with definitely not losing this one as early as it is. So you don't want to kind of lose 3 games in a row. So two really tough games at home. I think you need to be looking at least you'd be looking at, 4 points would be great, or like a point from both of them wouldn't be the end of the world. I think you just got to kind of make sure you're not losing both of them.
Prutts, what have you made of Preston? Obviously, we know all about Hecky and what he's like at this level. Fantastic manager at this level, very wily. I saw, I think it was Andrew Davis said before the game against Bristol City, which was 0-0 at Deepdale, that he felt that I think he's been at the club since 2018, and he felt this was the best squad they've had in that time. So that's quite a long time, quite a statement to make as well.
They've been great. They've been good at home as well, obviously, being able to go toe-to-toe with what you call the bigger teams in the Championship. Did you see the save in the dying seconds?
From Everton.
My God, what a save. Cynically, you go, he should be finishing that, but what a save that was. Absolutely outrageous. Yeah, where it's chopped and whoever's come flying past on his backside and suddenly the goal's at his mercy. It's one of the best saves I've seen so far this season. But yeah, there's no. You look at obviously what they've done at home against Ipswich and Leicester, and up until 30 seconds from time against Borough. You know what I mean? There'd have been another 3 points there. So I think he's done incredibly well. I've always, and you know that I know him. I've always had a lot of time for the way he goes about it. The question would be, or the challenge would be, for whoever is in charge of Preston, and going back to say when Ryan Lowe was there and into the first international break, top of the league, and no one's getting carried away, but we're all saying, is this the season? Because for far too long, and maybe you look at the back end of last season when they were in the mix and fighting to pull away from trouble. For far too long, if you're a Preston fan, they're in the middle, aren't they? They flirt a little bit at times with the top 6. Nothing's really come to fruition. Having spoken to Peter Ridsdale at length about that, it's a very well-run football club. There's a lot to really, really be impressed about. But that's not the sexy stuff, is it? Financials are the sexy stuff for a fan. Oh, brilliant. We'll run really well. Great. But the flip side of that is you go from month to month where players aren't getting paid and you're struggling. And obviously that's a different end of the spectrum. But I think, without wanting to put words into the mouth of Preston fans, they've got to have a season where they're knocking around in the top 6 or knocking on the door of the top 6. I think this season's Championship is as flat a kind of field of middle distance runners as you're going to see, if that's the right analogy. So why not this year? It's all about keeping up that momentum, talking about the squad, as you said, Andrew Davies talked about. It's as competitive a squad in the Championship as they could have put together, I think, in recent years. So it's something that City have got to be very, very wary about. Very wary about.
Burnsy?
Yeah, I'm just sort of looking at the stats. Tightest defence, haven't they, with Borough and Stoke, I think, in the division. The stats suggest they're not a possession-based side. And the 22nd on accurate passing, and what did I say, 21st on shots on target. So it suggests it will be tight. It suggests it'll be very tight. But the 4 points ahead of City. I don't know. It might be. Prutts mentioned the financials. It might be with them. You come to. Can you make a really good investment in January that takes you towards the top 6? But he's got a good record. He's got a couple of promotions, hasn't he? So they rightly they'll need to be respected, as you would with all the the teams in the division. Just on City, to the 1904 club from Rich Lutkin. Watford frustrating, but think we need a reality check. It's easier to tighten up at the back than figure out a way of playing to score plenty of goals. I think the manager said that a week or two ago. Team still gelling. I think it was after Swansea he said it's team still gelling, and the manager still getting to grips with the league. I think those are fair points, Rich. Do we need to tweak away from home and drop Joffy for another central midfielder? It's an interesting question. Matt Bonewell says, do we think we could bring an extra midfielder in to help with a bit more cover defensively? Need to find the right balance. Would another midfielder float your boat, Kathryn?
I mean, you'd never say no. You never say no to adding to the squad. I think it depends on what type of midfielder we were gonna bring in. It does feel like we have got options in there. It's just I'm not sure we've figured out the best combination of them yet.
I don't think they were suggesting sign another midfielder in January or anything like that. It's just do you drop another midfielder so you've
another one in team. I see. I was just like, just bring one in. Yeah, sure. Yeah, why not?
Regardless of the window, buy anyone at any time.
Transfer, yeah, sure, swing them in. Maybe, yeah, but that's kind of what I was saying with well, there's a Gelhardt. Do you move him out wide? Because I like him in the middle, and I think, give him that free role. But then, are you losing? Is that not to say it's on him, but are you then losing a bit of the midfield battle because he's playing kind of further forward? Is he better going out wide? For example, we had Drame on the right at the weekend. Should we have had Gelhardt out on the right, and should we have had someone else in the midfield? It's easy to say with hindsight, but I don't know because we've not. I think he probably wants to play Gelhardt there because his best position is in the middle. It feels like from what we've seen from him. So then, are you losing something in the attacking sense if you sort of force him out wide? But it's tricky because that's when you sort of think, well, if Crooks comes back in when he's fit, where does he go and who does he come in for and who does? Because I don't really think because Crooks at the start of the season was sort of playing in the two, which I don't actually think is his position.
No.
He's more of the number 10 sort of role, but maybe the box to box kind of thing.
I think as well, potentially, Kathryn, going on your point with Joe, as much as we're talking about Oli, the question mark about Joe Gelhardt was getting him in the team for as long as possible and as consistently as possible. And maybe the work that he's doing is garnering less headlines because he's not getting himself in and around the kind of goals that Oli is. But unless you can absolutely shoot me down with this, you're getting something out of Joe that he's always wanted to get, which is playing in that position and being able to help create. And with lauding City for going forward, there just seems to be a disparity between where that ends and where defensive work starts, doesn't it, really? Which any good team is chemistry and some of its parts. So there is a question there potentially for the manager because, like you say, if you suddenly stick Joe out wide and get someone a bit more solid in that position that can do both backwards and forwards, does then Joe become marginalised, not stuck out the wing, he's not a winger, is it, but stuck out wide and not being able to get close to Oli? Because if Oli's playing up there relatively on his own, he needs people in and around him, doesn't he?
And Gelhardt he's involved. He might not have got all the assists, but he's quite often involved in the build up to the goals. So when he
because of where he is geographically, isn't he? Yeah.
Well, the goal of Watford.
Yeah, for
he
the
was,
goal.
He was heavily involved. But McBurnie does really well in the middle of the park. Gelhardt brings it away and puts it out wide to Drame, who cuts it back for the goal. Just on the subject of the midfield, Jurkovic said to me on Thursday last week that he was working on a plan for Watford because he's aware of how good they are on the flanks, and he felt that he might need to be a little bit more pragmatic, which I thought was interesting actually. And then obviously he went Drame wide right to double up with Louis Coyle and try and be a bit more pragmatic. Obviously, but Drame's got such a good engine. And Cody is good going forward as well. He's got that engine. He's athletic. He should have scored, but he gets an assist, and he should have scored. So if all being well, all things being equal, City come away from Saturday with the guy that's brought in to be theoretically a little bit more pragmatic in midfield and offer a bit more defensive cover with a goal and assist, and they win the game. So it's mad, isn't it?
actually, he got in 4 very good attacking positions, I
Yeah.
think, in the game. I think there was even 3 in the centre half, but because he sort of the first 2 he muffed a bit from memory. You could see the third chance in the second half when it came. He didn't have he played a volleyed cross rather than putting through it really, and you could see his confidence draining a bit. But he got in good positions, and yeah, maybe he should have scored in the first half. Credit Nathan Baxter with that. But if memory serves correctly, I think Kyle Joseph should have maybe not taken a touch on the rebound as it came out, and tucked it away rather than trying to take a touch. But that's, by the by,
Have you,
I suppose. But
Burnsy, is muffed it a word that you've used on Tigers Plus commentary?
Well, I don't think I used it on Saturday, but
maybe save that one in the bank for
a shot. Is it a Scottish word?
I've got no idea. I don't know.
It must be a Scottish phrase. He's muffed that.
Okay.
Is it? No. Oh, well,
we'll leave that one there.
What
else? You were going to say something intelligent then.
Varied thing.
Come on.
Yeah.
You've got something intelligent. Come on.
Dan Adamson says to the 1904 club, I doubt it. Dan Adamson says to the 1904 club, don't overcook the Watford game, been and gone. If there's a buzz in the squad, then they shouldn't need motivating for the next 2 games, which 4 points from the next 2 games would be a great response. Prutts will hate this because Jay says, do we drop the number 10 role for an extra 6 or 8 for more support in the midfield? Yeah.
Where do they play? Jay. Absolutely no idea.
7, 11.
Yeah, you're doing
3 or 4.
Crust in there. Oliver Harsley, still frustrated after that second half Watford performance, as should have made the most of Watford fans being toxic towards their own team and manager. Yeah, we have to take our chances to punish the opposition and somehow stop conceding such avoidable goals, which are hampering us. Peter Johnson, with more goal threat this season, but we might need to score 2 or 3 goals in a game to get points due to our leaky defence. Think we need to look at Coventry away and how Jay and Hughes blunted the Sky Blues. Is it 3 months until Matazo is ready? He could be key this season. What's the latest there, Baz? Quick one on that.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get an update fairly soon. But yeah, it was they said around Christmas time that he'd be back. So hopefully we'll have a full update on him soon. Balumi out for 6 to 8 weeks, so we won't see Balumi until the back end of next month. Or sorry, not next month, as in November. I'm already in October. And Liam Miller back on the bench at Watford, which was fantastic to see. Happy birthday to him as well. That was his birthday. Shame he didn't get on, but great to have Liam Miller back, and we expect he'll get some minutes on Tuesday night and then again on Saturday. Joel Ndala out with a foot injury. That's why he didn't come off the bench against Southampton and wasn't in the squad at Vicarage Road. But he will be staying with City to go through his rehab as he tries to get fit, but they are liaising directly with Manchester City on that. Before we finish, just a quick look ahead to Saturday. Prutts, Sheffield United.
Yeah.
We knew that eventually he would get a result. Chris Wilde, he got it at his former club, Oxford, on Saturday. Probably not hugely convincing, but given where they've been, it doesn't matter. Early kickoff, obviously, a game that you've got live on Sky.
Yes.
Plenty
Thanks
of
for reminding me.
It's all right. You've got to be there early.
I forgot. What time's kickoff?
Plenty of, obviously, you've got Jared Dublin, who we did an interview with last week. That's on the 1904 Club channel. If you want to catch up with that, Jared Dublin was there. You've got obviously Lundstrom, Egan, McBurnie, Regan Slater. So much ex-Sheffield United involvement. So it's going to be quite an occasion, isn't it? But for City, Prutts, irrespective of whatever happens against Preston before that, that's going into the break. They went into the last break on the back of a Tonkin at Bristol City. That is a hugely important game for them to get something from. And again, a bit like Southampton, but in a different way, would be a real test of their credentials, wouldn't it?
Yeah, very much so. It felt like it had to come at some stage, didn't it, for the good of where Sheffield United season's going to go. Chris talked about that first game that he saw against Charlton, where almost players were trying too hard, which hampered any flow and fluidity. I didn't realise there was that. I knew there was names relevant to the two, but I'll be chasing you up again for that list so I can wow people at work going, oh yeah, these are all, remember all these that used to play for each other, and give us some form of context. But it's imperative that City don't go into it in any form of timid way. I mean, you look at the players that you've mentioned there, they're the type of players that really want to go and show Sheffield what they're missing. Absolutely, don't they? I think you look at the times, I mean, in particular, McBurnie and Lundstrom. I said this when John first came in. There was a period in the Premier League where John had been there a long time and Sander Berger was there as this big, briny, big, shiny, bright. Don't mix those two words up. I mean, he did play like that at some stage in the Premier League, but what John was doing in midfield was he was more effective than Sander Berger was for quite a period of time. I thought for that Sheffield United side in the Premier League, so you'd hope that there'd be a driving force for that. I know that the two players are well liked between. Go on.
Burnsy, go on.
Stop. You told me to stop, so I stopped.
Yeah,
We've all stopped. It's better be good.
Sorry, I was just my fault. It's not going to be good now. There's the time as an ad lib, and we didn't put it in the script in the green room earlier. But I was going to say, was Berger better in the final third?
Oh dear.
That dad jokes are always worth the wait, so I'll take that on the chin. But it was yeah. The players there will be motivated enough to get something out. And as you mentioned, John Egan as well. They'd be in that position where they'd want to give a good account of themselves, and they're all very well liked former Sheffield United players. So there is a nice undercurrent to the game. But in the context of what the Championship season is, Chris will be looking to accrue those points as quickly as possible, make up for lost time with a just quite ridiculously disastrous management appointment. And as I said from City, there should be a confidence going into that game. That, make no mistake, Sheffield United are back to where they were under Chris instantly. There's a lot of work he's got to get through to get that confidence back into a team which has been low on it and has been woefully underperforming. Yes, Ruben's got to take some responsibility for that, but it's players that get managers sacked, and that team hasn't played well enough to keep a manager in a job. So that's their cross to bear, whether they're bothered or not. So yeah, I think it's a cracking game in the offing. I think given what City can do offensively, it's just, as we said, it's been a real theme of the conversation today is defensively, what can they do to shore things up at the back? Preston being the example that Burnsy uses, that look at where they are with a good defence in the top six.
Kathryn, thoughts on Sheffield United?
I think a lot is going to depend on how they do against Preston and how what their mindset is going into that game after that result tomorrow night. But it was always my worry of it was a lose-lose with the Sheffield United situation, because if they still hadn't got any points, you always kind of expect them to have points by then. But if they still hadn't won a game, you would kind of have felt like, well, they've got to get it eventually. But now they've got that win, you think, well, are they going to go on a run? So again, obviously interesting to see what they do midweek in terms of, is it Borough they've got, or is it somebody else? I feel like it's a tough. I feel like they might have a tough.
They play at home to Southampton on Tuesday night.
Oh,
yeah. So that's like Southampton kind of need the they need the points as well. So a lot of things might depend on what Sheffield United and City do on Tuesday.
Lindsay, have you got a visitor?
I was really trying to like.
It was my middle son picking up the dog. That was all. Yeah. Sorry.
I was ignoring it, and then I just looked up and saw Baz laughing, and I was like, I can't.
I'm not professional enough to be able to not laugh at stuff like that.
Pitch invasion.
Yeah, it'd be nice to beat Sheffield United. It feels like a while since we beat them. I know we beat them away from home, but at home we've had we've not had the best record over. And Wild has had quite a few good results there in the last few times he's been. So it would be nice to get a win over them. So hopefully that'll finally happen.
Final thoughts, Burnsy, before we finish, because I've got to get to the training ground.
Okay, well, I'm just an old-fashioned merchant. I'm concentrating on one game at a time, and it's the Preston one. And I mean, that first half at Watford was excellent. So I want to see more of that. They're not far away from being a decent, very decent
really
side at this level. So we'll see what he does, whether he does fresh legs, a couple of tweaks or something like that. But I don't think there's any reason to panic on the basis of what we've seen so far. It's been encouraging for me, by and large.
Yeah, I agree with that. Much to be excited about if they can just tighten up at the back. Right, that's it from us on the 1904 Club for today. Thank you, everybody, for getting in touch. We always see the comments. Kathryn, great stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Prutts, you with your bright yellow stuff and your face hat that you didn't show the people on YouTube.
Put it on very quickly.
Yeah. Very quickly. For those that are watching on YouTube, this is David Prutton's running gear around his hometown, so he doesn't get spotted and people pestering him for his predictions and various other things that he does. So thanks, Prutts. Love you. Bye. And Burnsy, I'll see you at the MKM on Tuesday night for what we think is going to be Korean fried chicken in the press room. So I can't wait for that. At this point, say something, Burnsy. Don't just leave me hanging. I mean, are you working on like 56K or something?
He's got a dial-up.
He's just smiling. Are you all right?
Yeah, fine. I don't know whether it's me or you or it goes silent for a while, but
it's not me, it's you.
That's your age, Burnsy.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks, everybody. We're going to get going.
Entirely possible.
We'll see you again soon. Thanks very much.
Pleasure.